Tranos for the Coach Speak Index. What's up? What's going on? How are your fantasy teams looking in week 3 now? Do you have one of the 8 healthy skill players remaining in the NFL? If you think it's rough now, buddy, we haven't even hit the bye weeks yet. My God. Awful. We need a company that offers health insurance for fantasy football. I need my Kenneth Walker check right now. Somebody get a J.G. Wentworth on the phone. There is a company that offers vulture insurance for running backs in fantasy, and they are also offering a free CeeDee Lamb pick'em right now, and that, of course, is Underdog Fantasy. You're probably thinking, Greg, hold on. Didn't Underdog just offer CeeDee Lamb higher than 0.5 yards? Yes. Yes, they did. You spent the entire concert yelling for the band to play Freebird. Then they finally played it. And now they're playing it again. Back to back. Does life get any better? That's not a rhetorical question. That's a real question. And the answer is no. Sign up with promo code CoachSpeak on Underdog Fantasy, and you will get that CeeDee Lamb free pick plus a second free pick plus a first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Pretty nice. Pretty nice. Before we get into Coach Speak clips from this week, let's run down injuries real quick and injury Coach Speak. On September 13th, Mike McCarthy said about Jake Ferguson, he's doing well. He did a little more yesterday. We'll see how he feels this morning and set a plan. He's getting close. Mike McCarthy has a 95% reliability rating on injury Coach Speak, so we expect Jake Ferguson back in the very near future. Also on September 13th, Mike McDaniel, Dolphins head coach, said, I'm optimistic that Teron Armstead will return sooner than later. Teron Armstead dealing with a shoulder injury. Mike McDaniel has an 85% reliability rating on injury Coach Speak. We do expect Armstead back sooner than later. September 15th, Detroit Lions head coach Dan Campbell was asked about the injury status of Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown, sorry. And Campbell said he's all right. I don't think it's anything long-term, so that's good news. And then the very next day, Campbell was asked again, and he said just lower leg, he'll be good. Soft tissue. Dan Campbell has a 90% reliability rating on injury Coach Speak, so we will believe that it is not anything long-term, and it seems like St. Brown can be back pretty quickly. September 16th, Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell said that Justin Jefferson, who is dealing with a quad bruise, came to the facility feeling pretty good and is day-to-day. Kevin O'Connell has a 90% reliability rating on injury Coach Speak, so we expect Justin Jefferson back by week 4, with week 3 firmly in play. Also a couple days later, September 18th, Kevin O'Connell was asked about Jordan Addison dealing with an ankle injury, and O'Connell said he is kind of still in that day-to-day world where we just have to see how he responds. So day-to-day, he said that clock is ticking. And so we will expect Jordan Addison within the next couple weeks. Sounds like this week might be a stretch, but possible. Finally, September 18th, Chargers head coach Jim Harbaugh was asked about Justin Herbert's ankle. And initially he said working through something. And then he was pressed again by, I believe it was Daniel Popper. And Jim Harbaugh, very funny clip, says, crystal ball. Very Jim Harbaugh thing. And then finally relents, which is something that when we built Jim Harbaugh's profile and put it live, one of the things that we said about him was initially, like, he doesn't like to give any information up, especially about injuries. And he'll usually shut it down. Just the first attempt at a question about injury, just shut it down. Or just say like, oh, it's working through something. That's his new thing. And but what I found from his 49ers transcripts were that when reporters pressed him, second, third, fourth times, then there's a much higher rate, much higher chance that Harbaugh relents and finally gives something. So it goes one of two ways. Either he'll say, we've plowed enough ground, that's enough, or he'll just like keep being vague, and then, okay, that's it. Or he'll finally give you a little piece of information, like he did here on September 18th. He said Justin Herbert is getting better every day. Just met with him. He said he was feeling much better and good today. So that's a step up from Jim Harbaugh's normal working through something injury coach speak, and that bodes well for Justin Herbert. Okay, let's start out with quarterbacks. First one is no clip, but just run through this real quick. Carolina Panthers on September 15th. Panthers head coach Dave Canales said Bryce is our quarterback. And then less than 24 hours later, Canales announced that Andy Dalton will be the starter going forward. So expect to see a more competent offense with a quarterback who doesn't need to stand on his tippy toes to throw the ball. This defense is still truly, truly terrible. So the offense is likely going to have to be in catch-up mode throughout games. And we know that Canales wants to establish the run. He wants to be stubborn and showing you that he's committed to it. But that's only going to get you so far. We might see them abandon the run in a lot of games. But upgrade for Deontay Johnson, Xavier Legette. They're skill players there. Then Jonathan Brooks hopefully coming back in a couple weeks or so. Maybe. Nah. I was going to say maybe this could be a league average offense. I don't think so. But it will be better than it has been. We will at least see passing yards into the hundreds with Andy Dalton. That'll be nice. Okay, Tennessee Titans. Man, this was such a wild one. Goodness gracious. You thought you saw one of the worst turnovers by a quarterback by Will Levis in week 1. Week 2, pretty close. Week 1 probably still worse, but man, another huge brain fart for Will Levis. And head coach Brian Callahan, he didn't take it well.
What did you say to Will on the fumble? I know you looked very upset on the sideline.
I think the camera caught it pretty clear, if I had to guess. So, I was upset. It was dumb. It was the same exact thing he did last week, and he cost us points in the red zone. And that is what it is. He's a grown-up, and he knows better. And so, I was really irritated that he cost us 3 points in a game that we probably needed it.
Ooh. Rough stuff, especially after week 1 when I think like 3 different press conferences Brian Callahan and offensive coordinator Nick Holtz like really threw him under the bus. I don't know if it's throwing under the bus as much as like they're just very, very honest about that was an inexcusable turnover. We can't do that. And they've talked about how Will Levis has this hero gene in him and this instinct of gotta make something happen. He's playing every down as if it's the last play of the game and they need a touchdown. When, hey man, sometimes you just got to recognize this play's not going anywhere and we can at least get 3 points out of it. But they don't like this hero gene of his. And Callahan said, I thought we had coached it out of him, but we keep seeing it. Now, he did have some nice things to say about Will Levis. And he said, hey, I coach him hard and I love him hard. And he knows that. But this is just clearly who Brian Callahan is. He's not. The leash is shortening right now on Will Levis. Now, aside from that awful fumble in the red zone, I got to say, Will Levis looked pretty decent. And Brian Callahan is telling us the things that we're seeing in these games of, okay, it's by no means perfect footwork, but it's better than where he was last year. There's a real improvement in Will Levis from last year to this year. But it doesn't seem like it because of these two awful, inexcusable turnovers. So he has to clean that up. Can he? I don't know. Like Brian Callahan has said, this is an instinctual thing. This is like a gene of his. It's hard to teach that out. When you're really under pressure, you're not going through these mental processes. It's instinct at that point. And hopefully you put in enough hours, or you just have enough, good enough instincts, or you've had really good coaching to where you know exactly what to do in a situation, right? Because you've experienced this so many times. You're so used to this. It's just like, okay, this happens, this is my response. This happens, this is my response. Will Levis isn't there yet. It's going to take a while, but that leash is certainly shortening on him. But again, besides those awful turnovers, pretty good stuff from Levis. All right. Running backs. Let's start with the Houston Texans. And this is a clip from prior to week 2. After Joe Mixon had handled 33 touches in a week 1 win, Bobby Slowick, their offensive coordinator, was asked whether Joe Mixon can sustain his bell cow workload from week 1.
Joe talked about in the offseason how he had an offseason that he'd never had before to get ready for this year. He wanted to be that bell cow back, 30 carries plus some passing down stuff. It's a big workload for a guy. Is that something that's sustainable throughout the course of the season? Is that, hey, that's what we need to do to win the game that day? How do you sort of manage something like that for a guy like Joe?
Physically, I'd say he's probably one of the few guys remaining in the NFL that could handle that. There's not many offenses you're going to run the ball to the same guy 30 times over and over and over and over again every week. But I'm not really worried about his workload in that regard. Like, he's just built and has in his past done that before and is built to do that. But it really is more of, we'll give Joe the ball as many times as necessary, and we'll give Nico the ball as many times as necessary, and we'll give Steph the ball as many times as necessary, and Tank, and like really all the way across the board. And every game's going to wind up playing out different. So, in that game, it was a 30-carry game for Joe, and when you have 30 carries and you're averaging over 4, in his case 5 a carry, that's a heck of a day.
The Houston Texans coaching staff, head coach D'Amico Ryans, offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick, this past offseason, whenever they talked about Joe Mixon, I mean, go back and look at the clips. Just search them on our timeline. Absolutely downright gleeful, giddy when talking about Joe Mixon. Like, love this guy so much, talking about what a focal point of the offense he'll be, and that he is a true 3-down guy, a workhorse running back. Positively gushing about this guy every time they talk about him. Like, those are signals that in the future, I just really want to invest heavily in that. When, I mean, this is like the most gushing I've seen over a player is the Texans talking about Joe Mixon. And I've talked about this before where, we can say, oh, Joe Mixon, inefficient runner. He's getting older. He's, handled a large workload up to this point in his career. But what a coaching staff thinks about a player is more important than our perception of that player. It was very clear from the offseason that they were really going to ride Joe Mixon. Big time workload for him. In an offense that probably ends the year as a top 5 offense because of how good the quarterback is, and they have the best receiving trio in the NFL by a very large margin. So it's an offense that moves the ball a lot. It's an offense that's going to get into the red zone a lot. And then when they get into the red zone, Joe Mixon time. Joe Mixon did leave this game in week 2 with an ankle injury. D'Amico Ryans was asked about that this week. He said, we'll take it day by day with Joe and his injury and see where he ends up at the week. Still holding out hope that he can make it. So Joe Mixon and fellow backfield running back colleague, see how redundant we can be on 2 words here. Damian Pierce also in danger of missing week 3. So could be a Cam Akers game. All right. New York Jets. Here is head coach Robert Saleh talking about rookie running back Braylon Allen, who scored 2 touchdowns in week 2.
Robert, what kind of dimension does Braylon add to your offense?
He's a definite change of pace. He is a load and a very, very dense, heavy runner. And, he's going to fall forward. You got to bring all your pads if you want to tackle this dude. And but what's really cool about him is that he's good in the pass game, too. He's smooth out of the backfield. He's got really nice hands, and he's really good in the protection game, and somebody that we trust if Brees needs a break. And yesterday, with it being hot and on a short week, traveling for the second week in a row, I thought he did a great job stepping up for Brees. And obviously the screen, the screen in the red zone that he caught for a touchdown was. It didn't matter who was the running back. It was very easy to put him in that position, and then obviously breaking off that big run at the end of the game on 2nd and 4. That was also a very similar play to what Brees had when he broke that 30-yarder. So
when Braylon Allen is in the game, they are using him like they use Brees Hall, which is great for Braylon Allen. He's got really nice hands. They talked about that throughout the offseason. Him being good in protection, no surprise for somebody who's 240 pounds. And that's great for a rookie running back. Back in May, after the Jets drafted Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis, Robert Saleh was asked about Brees Hall's expected workload, and just want to bring that back because it's relevant. Saleh said, Brees is the unquestioned bell cow, but even then, you're still talking 20, 25 touches. Brees Hall in week 1 saw 21 touches on 22 opportunities, and then in week 2, Brees Hall once again saw 21 touches on 22 opportunities. So, yeah, falling within that 20, 25 touch range. Don't need to be worried about Brees Hall. He's going to continue to get a large workload there. And then Braylon Allen will be the guy that's mixed in. It'll be those two. And if something were to happen to Brees Hall, Braylon Allen is a big-time league winner. A lot of teams could have used a Braylon Allen, and they missed out. Chicago Bears. Head coach Matt Eberflus was asked about Travis Homer and the third down running back role. And we'll just play you the clip.
Hey, Matt, with the third down, I know you guys have liked so far this season having Travis back there with Caleb. I'm wondering, because we're used to Roshan, we saw him there a lot in camp. Is that something where Roshan still, was it a health thing, injury thing, getting back in that spot? Are there things that Travis Homer has done to kind of earn that role in the backfield? How do you see that shaking out?
Yeah, we want to be able to mix that up a little bit and change it. Travis has done a really good job in protection. He's done a really good job when we had called some design runs in there. For example, we had one yesterday. I believe he punctured it into the field goal range for us at the end. But again, we want to have a little bit of mix and match in there, just to create some different matchup issues for the defense. And Roshan is one of those guys, and Swift is one of those guys, and Herbert's one of those guys, and all those guys are capable of doing it. And we like to have a little bit of mix in there, just like you do with your receivers and tight ends.
Mess. Just a big mess. My God. DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert, Roshan Johnson. Okay, right? We thought this might be a bit of a mess. Then they add in Velus Jones. Very committed to him being a running back. Now they add in Travis Homer. Ugly, man. Real ugly. This week, though, maybe the best matchup you could have because people are running all over the Colts defense. This might be a DeAndre Swift week. Could it be the DeAndre Swift week? Or maybe Khalil Herbert. Maybe the better runner gets the run this week. Who knows? Glad I did not invest in DeAndre Swift, but a little sad about my Khalil Herbert shares. Thought he would be a little more involved. Okay. Last week, talked about Zamir White. I said, might have to order some crow. Don't have to eat it yet, but might just want to tell, the supermarket, hey, order some crow for me. Might might be by to pick it up. Well, let's put it on hold. All right. We're going to put that crow on hold because head coach Antonio Pierce had something to say about Zamir White this week.
And Coach, how do you keep Zamir kind of keep his head in it? Obviously, there's been some struggles in the run game, but how do you keep his confidence high?
No, I'm going to keep pumping him up. Our goal is to get 20-plus touches with him. That was a goal this week. Didn't happen. That's going to be a goal this week and every week while he's a starting running back and I'm here. So it ain't Zamir. We got to start up front, man. The big boys up front got to block. Bottom line. They know it. We're going to talk about it here in a few minutes.
We've heard Antonio Pierce talk before last season about he has this magic number of 20 touches for his run back. We saw with Josh Jacobs, and then when Josh Jacobs got injured, we saw it with Zamir White. And now, in these first two games, that hasn't quite worked out. Zamir White got 13 carries and 2 receptions in the first game, and then played more in the second game, but didn't get as many touches. They spent a decent amount of the game losing to the Ravens, but it was surprising and a good sign that they kept Zamir White in the game, when they were trying to come back from behind, which, we all thought was going to be an Alexander Madison thing because they really like Alexander Madison's pass protection. And then, his ability as a pass catcher. But it was a lot of Zamir White. And then Antonio Pierce talked this week about how good he was in pass protection against the Ravens. And then Antonio Pierce also spent a good chunk of time in this same press conference talking about how piss poor the offensive line play has been, that they're not getting any push post-snap, they're not moving anyone. And he also stated that he's open to a change in run scheme. So maybe, possibly, we see the Raiders move away from zone runs back to more of a power run scheme that they ran last year. I don't know what the percentage chance of that is, but he said he was open to it. Hey, we'll see. We'll see. But I do expect a lot more touches for Zamir White. They're playing the Panthers this week. Really bad run defense. And he's just talked about even through these two games, talking about Zamir White. They went into week one with a plan to give Zamir White 20 touches. And Antonio Pierce, I think that previous week had said, we want to see him 15, 20, 25 touches. And several times now has mentioned that that's when running backs really start to get kind of rolling in a game is around touch 15. And then, you're really wearing the defense down. This is Antonio Pierce. This is old school, defensive minded, wants to stop the run on defense, wants to run the ball on offense kind of guy. We're going to pound them with the run all game. And then in the fourth quarter, they're going to be just battered to a pulp. And that's when we rip off the 15, 20, 30, 40-yard runs on them. That's his vision of this offense, is bully ball, smash mouth, run it down your throat. Great clip of him last year after they beat Kansas City on Christmas Day. And he ran the ball a ton that game, and they asked him about it. And this really great clip of him saying, when you know that it's coming, and I know that you know that it's coming on Christmas against the Chiefs. And he just took such pride in running the ball down teams' throats last year. He is a give the ball to your best players kind of coach. So it's Devontae Adams, it's Brock Bowers, and it's the running back, right? Is Zamir White the third best player on this team? No, it's Jacoby Myers on offense if we're talking skill positions. But this is a key cog in the Antonio Pierce offense is running back. So this week, expecting a lot of Zamir White usage and definitely monitoring this whole situation because, yes, there's the ideal thing that you want to do heading into a game. And then the game happens. And, you might have to kind of throw out the game plan that you came in with because that's not going to work in the situation that you find yourself in. I believe in these wins in games where they're up. It's going to be a lot of Zamir White. And I think they really want to figure out this run game. And if they think that, going back to power, run scheme instead of zone will help them out and help them run the ball more effectively, then I expect that we will see that at some point. Miami Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel thinks De'Von Achane could make a case for even more touches.
De'Von right now through 2 games has, I think it's 46 touches. The next 5 players combined for like 44. Was this always the plan to have him be such a heavy focal point of this offense, or is there a plan to diversify a little bit?
Well, I think there's, compounding variables. I wouldn't say, I knew he was going to have an uptick in involvement. I think, with Raheem, his situation, that's kind of added to it. The defensive structures and what they've committed themselves to has given him more opportunities. I think specifically, it's hard not to give guys opportunities that really are thirsting for the ball. They're doing something with it. So it's to his credit. You want to talk about a guy that literally did everything imaginable to have that Thursday night opportunity in terms of his time in the training room and making sure that he was full go. He's all he's done is given more reasons to get him the ball. I wouldn't say that it's probably quite the opposite. Going into the season, I wasn't we really have a situation where there's a lot of people get the ball, more so than I've ever been used to here. So to say that I was forecasting such a heavy dose, that wouldn't be honest. But at the same time, he's definitely earned all the opportunities, and he could make a case for even more. So I think I wouldn't expect. There's so many playmakers that we have to diversify. I think that's his production with the ball right now is definitely a positive for us because to get the ball away from him, you got to do some good stuff with it. So I think it puts pressure on all eligibles and what you do with the ball, because he's made it very clear that on the routine he's probably making the first guy miss.
Mike McDaniel, always good for a lengthy answer. De'Von Achane in week 1 had 17 touches for 100 yards and a touchdown. In week 2, with Raheem Mostert out, 29 touches for 165 yards and a touchdown. Achane has 14 receptions through 2 games, 7 in each. Back in July, Mike McDaniel said that De'Von Achane has expanded roles, expanded different ways that he can get the ball. He had a taste of success, and fortunately for us, he's not satisfied with that. And now we're seeing Achane in the slot, split out wide. They're throwing him the ball. They're scheming up touches for him as a focal point of the offense because Mike McDaniel recognizes talent and knows how to use it. When McDaniel said on September 2nd that they were going to let the running backs determine how much they get the football based on what they do with it when it's in their hands, basically a hot hand approach, that was a screaming signal that De'Von Achane was taking over this backfield in year 2. He is a highly efficient game breaker. You put the ball in his hands and good things will happen. The other guys in this backfield just do not compare to his talent. Now with Tua Tagovailoa out, at least 4 games, Skylar Thompson in at quarterback, we could see even more scheme stuff for De'Von Achane. It's not great for Tyreek Hill and and Jalen Waddle. And you might think, well, obviously bad for the offense as a whole, but I don't think it's necessarily bad for Achane. This is a genius play caller at the helm here. He will find ways to get the ball in his best player's hands like he always does. And that's harder in the passing game because that relies on the quarterback to get the ball to them, wherever. But, down the field is where Tyreek Hill is so good. And if Thompson's not able to be accurate, which pretty good bet, it's not going to be as good, obviously, without Tua for those receivers. But easier to get the ball in your running back's hands. And Mike McDaniel has seen, like the rest of us, what De'Von Achane does when he has the ball. So a lot of De'Von Achane. Just because 2 is out doesn't mean that everyone on this offense craters. We saw Breece Hall last year. Different team, sure. Different, lot of stuff. But what's comparable, right, is starting quarterback goes down. Offense needs to change a little bit. Not as good. Not scoring as many points. But that running back still gets there because of volume and because of how talented they are. So yeah, De'Von Achane was a great pick. Hopefully he stays healthy. We know that's been one of the concerns, but the entire thesis was if De'Von Achane stays healthy, he'll put up big numbers. I said that he was able to put up Christian McCaffrey numbers if healthy and if he gets, 60, 70% of snaps, if he starts getting goal line work, which we have already seen when Raheem Mostert was playing. That's so big. That's such a smash in the 3rd round. My God, please just stay healthy. Wrap it up with the Tennessee Titans. And we saw in week 1, we saw in the offseason that the Titans coaching staff called Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears interchangeable, 1A, 1B. And then the first game we saw Tony Pollard get a lot more work. And then Brian Callahan, Titans head coach, was asked whether he still wants a 50-50 split between Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears. And this was after the week 2 game. The reporter might not have known that Tyjae Spears left early in the second game. You'll hear from the question and response, but hey, we'll cover it after.
Got hurt, and so that may change things this week or next. But when they were both healthy in week 2, you still saw the similar split that we saw from them in week 1. Do you stand by wanting to get them as 50-50 as possible, or do you feel them kind of settling into different roles?
No, I do feel the same way. I feel like I would still like to get more touches for Tyjae. I think one of the things we have to do is when we've gotten first downs, when we've gotten that first down, I think we've moved into scoring position just about every time. Our issue has been the 3 and outs and keeping drives alive. We need more. We need more opportunities. We need more drives. We need more first downs, and I think that'll even itself out over time. In a small sample size, it feels like there's a big disparity. I don't think over time it'll look like that at the end. And then obviously him getting hurt in the game skewed that some as well. So I do see it. I see Tyjae as a really impactful player and a guy that we have to make sure that has his requisite touches to help our offense.
My bad. That reporter was aware that Tyjae Spears left with the ankle injury. Did not mean to sully your reputation, my friend. But yeah, Tyjae Spears at the time that he exited the game in week 2 had played more snaps than Tony Pollard. He was getting, pretty equal work. I mean, that's just, over the course of the season, what Callahan is saying is, when we have a large sample size, not just one game, we have a large sample size, I think you'll see everything is pretty much evened out between Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears. And of course, we know that they had talked all offseason, at least Brian Callahan did, mentioning several times that we'll go with a hot hand at times in games with our running back. So week 1, we saw Tony Pollard running really good, and they decided, okay, hot hand, here we go. But again, over time, over the course of the season, we will see this even out. Wide receiver time. Start with the Los Angeles Rams. This was before week 2, and offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur was asked about receiver Tyler Johnson.
With Tyler, I mean, he's played in this league, and we got him obviously a year ago, not right away, I can't remember the exact date, but as he's just kind of grown in this system and the little nuances that we're talking about that happen in that receiver room, he's on it. He's on his details. The game's not too big for him. He's tough. He's a big physical dude, and he's got confidence. I know most importantly, Matthew and the guys have confidence in him. So, again, next man up, and he's that man up.
Next man up, and he's that man up. In week 2, Cooper Kupp gets hurt in that game. High ankle sprain. And then Tyler Johnson plays 87% of offensive snaps in week 2. DeMarcus Robinson, 92%. Jordan Whittington played 50% of offensive snaps. And Tutu Atwell played 19% of offensive snaps. So we see how the Rams value these guys in terms of playing time. DeMarcus Robinson locked in. I mean, he was locked in with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. So then, he's obviously locked in now. And then Tyler Johnson seems to be the second guy there in terms of snaps. And then Jordan Whittington is very, very interesting because this is a guy who's a rookie, right? So his role is likely to only grow in this offense. And he looked really good in the preseason, right? If we're going off eye test, Jordan Whittington passed the eye test in the preseason. And in this offense, with this quarterback, in this system, I mean, everything sets up for a talented receiver to be successful in this offense. I want to play you one more clip before we talk about the Rams receivers a little bit more. And this is Sean McVay talking about personnel groupings now that Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are out.
Let's start with Cooper Kupp's ankle sprain on the heels of Puka Nacua, obviously. Yep. And really, since you knew what you had in Cooper Kupp, this has been an 11 personnel, 3 receiver ecosystem.
Yep.
With those two guys down, is it a fair question to ask if that's still the best alignment for the 24 Rams?
No, we've got to be able to figure out some different things. And there's been a lot of lack of continuity at a lot of spots offensively, whether it be up front, whether it be at the skill positions. Unfortunately, you see Davis Allen missed the game last week with back spasms. And so it's fair to absolutely say, how do we best utilize our personnel moving forward? Two key and critical factors of that 11 personnel outfit as starters aren't part of that equation right now. And so we do need to reimagine it, like we said, exactly what that comes to based on a combination of things, starting with us first and foremost, and then going towards the opponent is something that we've got to be able to figure out, and it's our job to be able to maximize that.
Is that like, who do we have, and then what can we do with the guys we have, that reimagining?
Yeah, and then, who are you going against, and what type of responses do you expect that to elicit?
The Rams have led the NFL by a wide margin in 11 personnel and these 3 receiver sets. This year, 98.7%. Last year, 93.6%. 2022, 90.5% of the time on offense, they're in 11 personnel. That's so much. It's so much. And now, with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua out, there's a chance that they move away from 11 personnel. And once they have Davis Allen back, their tight end, and he's okay, and his back's not locking up on him, we could see some 12. And they have, I believe, a trio of offensive linemen returning now, while a couple others are sidelined. But I think Sean McVay's vision coming into this season was, hey, we want to keep running the ball like we did. And they were going to do it in 11 personnel. But now that Kupp and Puka are out, it's like, okay, maybe we run a little more 12. Maybe we try to focus on this run game a little bit now that the offensive line is a little more healthy, little, more put together. Not everyone is out anymore. Just very interesting to think about, because if they move away, now they're not going to abandon it completely, and then if they get behind in games, of course we could see that, see them playing more 11 personnel in those circumstances. But it's something that's entirely possible now. Like this is something that was not on the table before. We knew that they were going to lead the league in 3 wide receiver sets. Do they feel like they have the personnel right now, like he's talking about? Or would they be better served in other personnel groupings? Because this matters for the receivers. Demarcus Robinson locked in no matter what. But then instead of Demarcus Robinson, Tyler Johnson, and Jordan Whittington, it's Demarcus Robinson and then one of these two guys. Is it Tyler Johnson, who they've played more? Or is it Jordan Whittington, a rookie, who is just being played like a rookie and will continue to get more snaps throughout the season as he fits in to this offense and finds his footing there? If he has a big game like we saw in the preseason, it's going to be hard to take that off the field. And then what are those Tyler Johnson shares looking like? Okie dokie. Head over to Seattle. Jackson Smith and Jigba had a big game. And here's what head coach Mike McDonald had to say about him.
What do you think how Jackson played overall? Just those career highs for him and about him?
I didn't realize those career highs. It's pretty awesome. Yeah, I mean, he's a great player. He's got incredible hands, all the underneath stuff. I think he, underratedly deep threat. There's a play, I think it was an overtime, where he held on to that ball. The guy had a pretty good hand on it in ball in transition to be able to secure that ball in a critical moment. It's the one that stuck out with me. So he's a guy that we're going to be relying on moving forward, and he's a great player.
12 catches for 117 yards on 16 targets. On May 31st of this year, Mike McDonald said about Jackson Smith and Jigba, expecting big things out of him. I think we've got a really cool plan for him. And then on June 13th, McDonald said he's definitely going to be a massive piece of what we're trying to do offensively. All right, Mike. I see you, man. Telling us some possible truths here. Looking good. Tight ends. A couple clips for you here. This was before week 2. Offensive coordinator Adam Stenovich was asked about Tucker Kraft out-snapping Luke Musgrave 64-17.
Steno, I asked this more as a positive Tucker Kraft question, but there also is the other side of the coin of, the split was 64-17 snap between him and Luke. Why?
Yeah, that was one thing, like, after the game we looked at, and we definitely don't want that. You know what I mean? As far as we'd like to have it a little more even, so that's one thing we're going to kind of try and keep evened out as the game goes, or as the season goes.
Is there something that, like, it seems like Tucker took a big jump in, like, every area of his game, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Is there something that you need Luke to be doing a little more effectively to even that out?
No, I just think we just got to do a better job as coaches managing that, for sure.
So that was before week 2. And then in week 2, Tucker Kraft saw 56 offensive snaps. Luke Musgrave saw 31. So 80% and 44% there. I think a big reason for this snap disparity, especially in game or in week 2 here, but also, a bit in week 1, is the run game. They've been running the ball a lot. And Tucker Kraft, better run blocker. And they ran the ball like crazy this past week. Matt LaFleur, head coach, said, we went into that game with a plan to run the ball 40 plus times. So when they are a little more pass heavy, maybe we see that even out a bit. But I think it's becoming clear that Luke Musgrave was not a good pick at ADP, and Tucker Kraft as a final round flyer in best ball, looking pretty good there. We will wrap it up, coach speak clip wise, with the Las Vegas Raiders. Head coach Antonio Pierce was asked when he realized Brock Bowers would have a big impact on the offense. Here's what he had to say.
A lot of times we ask you about the young guys, and you say it's just a matter of when it clicks. I'm sure you expected that sooner rather than later with Brock, being that he was a first-round pick. But when did you realize that he was really going to be able to have as big of an impact as he's had on this offense so far?
Yeah, the day he walked in that door. I mean, we knew he was getting a blue chipper. I mean, he did it day one at Georgia when he walked on campus, and he did it each and every game, each and every year. And he got here in rookie minicamp, and you just, okay, we got pads on, and then we put pads on training camp, and it was like, all right, and we slowed him down a little bit because he was pushing himself. And to be honest, I mean, we knew what we got, just didn't want to speak on it until you did it. Now it's out there, and there's no hiding it. He's a really good football player. He's tough. He loves the game. He doesn't care how he looks, how he talks. He just wants to play ball, and that fits our mentality.
What a surprise. What a surprise. Brock Bowers. Incredible. Incredible that a guy who didn't go through any athletic testing could be this good. Yeah, he's tremendous. And all offseason they've talked about, when they drafted him, general manager Tom Telesco said he's a hybrid receiver. And they talked about lining him up in the backfield, using him in motion, putting him in a bunch of different spots. Dude's a baller. He's really good with the ball in his hands. They like him quite a bit. And the fact that they drafted him 13th overall when they already had a really good tight end, pretty big buy signal there. Okay. All right. Enough subtle victory lapping, Greg. I'm going to end this show by, we'll just talk about some nuggets that we put in the Discord throughout the week from these press conferences, things that did not make it onto Twitter, but important stuff that you're missing if you're not in the Discord, which is growing by the day. Got some pretty big names in there. Not going to name them, but yep. All right, post-game presser on Sunday, Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski said, I did a poor job of getting Donta Foreman out there in the season opener. He runs hard. He's good in the passing game, understands what we're doing. I wanted to get him going. And then on Wednesday, Stefanski said, I think Donta Foreman will get better with more time in our scheme. Foreman handled 14 carries and a reception in week 2, which he turned into 51 total yards. On Monday, Bengals head coach Zach Taylor said that Jermaine Burton's contested catches, speed, and competitiveness really stood out on tape. Said, I was really proud of his attention to detail this week. He was locked in. We felt a lot of confidence in him, and said our confidence in him will continue to grow. Also on Monday, Broncos head coach Sean Payton said Jaleel McLaughlin needs more touches. On Monday again, Brian Daboll, Giants head coach, was asked about Jalen Hyatt's low number of snaps. He said, we sprinkle in Hyatt in particular plays. He's the third guy in on 2 receiver sets and the fourth guy in on 3 receiver sets. He's third wheeling over there. On Monday, Lions head coach Dan Campbell said it was a positive showing from wide receiver Tim Patrick. Said, I think the idea is to see if we can open this up a little bit and use him a little bit more. Man, he's big, he's physical, his catch radius is pretty enormous. So there's a place for him here, and I see us using him moving forward. said that some of the workload could be taken from Jamison Williams and Khalif Raymond if we play Tim Patrick more. And said you're going to need to give your guys a rest every once in a while, and I think that's where Tim can help us out. He can play X or Z, and we can give him a little package here and there. On Tuesday, Colts head coach Shane Steichen said we didn't play Jonathan Taylor in the fourth quarter because we were passing a lot and weren't scheming up passes to the running backs. It's not necessarily a pass protection issue with Taylor. I just wanted to get Trey Sermon some reps. And then finally on Wednesday, Dallas Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy said, we are running back by committee. This is what it looks like, but it's running back by committee without enough attempts right now. So they do want to keep that running back by committee, but they want to run the ball a little bit more with it. Okie dokie. That does it. That's it. Like, subscribe. Like, comment, subscribe. You know the deal. I have press conferences piling up as we speak. So not even going to make a desperate plea for you to subscribe. Just like, hey man, this has turned into a desperate plea for you to subscribe. So listen, helps us out, helps you out. You get notifications when we have a new episode up, and pretty substantial information here that you might need for fantasy football. So, I mean, this is like the longest. Just subscribe. Do you want me to keep saying this every week? You're killing me here. Hit that sub button, my man. My friend, my Sarah, take us out.